Good morning, everyone. Today, I want to do a review of Collsoft Payroll package. For most small business owners, payroll can be a real headache. You've got people working for you, so you want to give them the right pay. You want to make sure you don't overtax them. You know, it's important that they get what they are due. Also, you now have to collect taxes as an agent for the revenue. So at the end of the year, you don't want a surprise liability. You don't want to get hit with a big amount of tax. So you need some way of calculating the tax properly. And there are a number of payroll packages in Ireland that do that. Collsoft, Thesaurus, BrightPay, Sage, MicroPay, the Big Red Book Payroll, all of those. I've been working with SMEs for nearly 20 years now, and Collsoft is one of the ones I use most frequently. So today I'm going to do a review of Collsoft. Before we do the review, it's useful to think, what is it exactly that you want from your payroll package? Well, you're going to want correct calculations. I mean, if somebody's working for you, it's only fair that they get the right amount of pay into their hand every week or month or whatever it is. And you also want a payroll package that can handle whatever specifics you have in your business, whether that's overtime, sick pay, pensions, or whatever. So the payroll package has to be, you don't care how flexible it is, but it has to be suitable for your business. You want to provide an easy to read payroll so that the employees can get their payroll package and they can look at it and understand it. You want to be able to provide all the reports that you need for the revenue, like the monthly or quarterly P30s. That's where you pay over the amount of deductions you've made in the previous pay period, monthly or quarterly, sometimes 6 monthly. You also want some reports for yourself. After all, you're running a business and you want to manage that business. So you need reports showing you what are your payroll costs. And you also need reports that will help you manage your cash flow. So when will I have to pay those taxes over to the revenue, and how much will I have to pay? It should give you that sort of information easily. Overall, even if you're not using the payroll software, even if you've got a staff member doing it, which is most likely, you want it to be easy to use. You want there to be a good interface to the payroll package. You want it to be have good help so that you can access it directly or else go to support. And finally, you want it to be cost effective. You don't want to be paying a huge amount of money for a piece of software. You want it to be reasonable. So I'm going to look at Collsoft against those guidelines. So when you go into Collsoft, we're looking at the company, the home screen here. So we'll go into the company first of all. The first thing you'll do every year is set up the company. Now, Collsoft allows you to set up the address and all the details. You put in your bank details. But the main things are the payments, the additions, and the deductions. And I don't know if you can see, but for each of these, you've got nearly 20 customizable options, and you can configure how the tax will apply to them. That's for payments, same for additions, and for deductions. It also handles all the benefit in kind stuff for you if you give people the use of a company car or whatever. You can use it to record your own employer's costs. So that if you're giving them, we say, send them training courses, providing protective clothing for them or whatever, making employers' pension contributions, you can log those and you can really understand what the costs are for your business. You can set up cost centers. This will allow you to allocate an employee to a cost center for all or part of a week or part of a pay period. And then at the end of the month, you can check how much did, we'd say, production floor cost me, how much did the warehouse cost me, how much did my sales staff cost me, how much did my admin cost me. And you can set up the pension. So Collsoft has as much as any company. I don't see many companies using all of these, but it has a lot of flexibility there. Next, then you're going to be looking at your employees. So we just pick one employee. Again, you can see the way the screen is organized. We talked about ease of use, but all this information is organized by tabs so that it's not overwhelming. You've got the personal information, emails, date of birth, all that sort of stuff. You've got the important revenue information. This whole section on PAYE and USC is what you use to calculate the taxes. You import that from revenue by way of a P2C file that comes from Ross. You can also manually bring it in, but I'd always prefer importing it because it's more accurate, and Collsoft allows you to do that. You've got the details in the previous P45 and you have to have their PPS number. Then you can set up their pay. What's their standard pay for a week or a month or whatever, and what is their overtime rates. You can set up the rate per hour. You can set up how frequently they're paid. It can be weekly, monthly, quarterly, or fortnightly or 4 weekly. You can set up the cost centers. These are the departments. So in this case, it's a kind of a bar type thing, bar staff, floor staff. But as I said, it could be production, warehouse. And I've seen construction companies use cost centers for the various jobs so that they can gather the wages per job. You've got a tab which shows you the year-to-date calculations. That's useful if an employee is coming to you and asking a specific query. You've got all the information gathered there. You've got a tab where you set up their payroll or their PRSI status. And then you've got sections where you put in the additions and the deductions. We didn't configure these, but in most companies, these can be configured. You've got a section where you record their holidays, and you can have a summary. What are they entitled to? What have they taken? And you've got all the detail in there then. So the summary is fed by the entitlements and the detail. You've got a tab where you can record sick days, absent without leave days or whatever. You've got a tab for notes. You've got a tab for the employer-specific costs. You've got a tab where you can set up the rules for their pension. Are they on a percentage of pensionable pay? Are they on a fixed amount? Whatever it is, it's fairly flexible and it can handle most scenarios. You've got a tab for benefit in kind. Again, you can set it up and it can handle most scenarios. And if you did give a loan, possibly a bike-to-work loan, or maybe just the employee was going through hard times and you give them a loan, you can set that up and you can set up a repayment. So in terms of setting up the employees and managing them, Collsoft has practically everything you need. I haven't really come across anybody who needed more. So that's the employee. Then we go into run of the wages. You can do that from the home screen, or you can go straight over to the wages screen. We'll just look at week 5 here. I know I've already run, but we've got 5 employees here. We look at this one, Pauline Quinn, no wages calculated for her. If I click into that, she's on a total pay of 432. I could add in, there's already hours added in here, 8 hours at 10 euros an hour for overtime, 4 hours at 15 euros an hour on top of her basic wage. She's under minimum wage now for me, but that's just the wine and dine company, the sample company they provide. So what happens then is you go into the pay, you can do the holidays for her that week, you can adjust the additions and deductions for that week, go into the department analysis, which department you want to charge her wages to, any note you want to put in. We don't have any employee cost for her. She's on a pension and it looks to me like she's paying about 10% towards a PRSA. She's got no benefit in kind, no loan, and no benefits. But if I go back to my pay, what I can see here is that she's on a gross of 432. She's got taxable ads. Let's look at what are they. It doesn't tell me now. By rights, that should be edited so that you can see what it is, but she's an additional 55. And then her deductions is in under the pension is 48.75. So her taxable wages are 438. It calculates the tax and it gives you her net pay and it shows you the PRSI. And that's neat. One useful thing, really useful thing I find with Collsoft is this workings. If we go into the tax, it shows me how we calculated the tax. Her gross pay is 438. She had 1755 coming in. So year to date, her gross pay is 2193. Up to 2,400, she pays tax at 20%. So she pays all her tax at 20% because she's below that, 438. She has tax credits at 238, so that means about 200 tax due, but she's already paid 160. So this week I have to calculate 40, or I have to deduct 40 from her. When an employee comes to you with a query, this little utility is very handy, and USC and PRSI are done in the exact same way. Another useful feature is the net to gross. If I wanted to see, she's getting 365 now this week. If I want to say, how much would I have to pay her to give her 500 a week? I'd have to give her 621. Now that's a variation, or that's a function of her own tax credits, which have nothing to do with the company. That's between her and the taxman. But that's a really useful feature. If some guy is coming to you and saying, I'm getting 500 in my last job, I don't recommend employers go down this road, but at least you'll be able to go back to them and say, well, if I give you gross, you should, and these are your tax circumstances, you should get 500 net. It can be handy to have access to that. The other thing, I won't save that now. I'll just get out of there. Run of the wages, I can run the pay slips and I can send it to the screen. And we'll just look at the screen. We'll run that to the screen and we'll just see how user-friendly is it. I think it's very user-friendly. If I just pull down that a little bit, so maybe I bring a little bit more. At the top, you can see that we've got the name, her works number, her PPS number, the payroll date and the period. Then we'll just move my little screen out of the way. Down to there. Then I've got her payments. Her basic pay was $237. And her tax deductions are $94. Now, I should go down to Pauline Quinn because that's the one we just looked at, and I can't remember what number she is, but she has to be down here somewhere. No, why did that happen? Okay, I'll unselect everybody. Unselect all. Oh, I didn't save the wage, that's what happened. So we'll save that now. And now we go into payslips. And we unselect all and we just select Pauline Quinn and we'll see her payslip. So what would she be getting? So again, you can see her basic and she can see her overtimes. And if we had these descriptions properly, it will be, they're there for her. So she's getting gross pay of $438. Then we can see her deductions and the summary of the deductions, allowable, non-allowable, PRSA employee and PRSA employer, that's the employer cost. And then we've got the year-to-date calculation. So she can see how the payroll was calculated. And then we've got the 365 net. So that, to me, that's a really clean payslip. It could be cleaner if whoever had set up this company had edited the descriptions a bit better. But it's you know, the functionality is there for you to make a very good payslip. Then we can send those payslips by emailing them, and they can be password protected, which is very useful. Let's just look at the payroll reports then. The main one that you'll use throughout the year is the PAYU, the P30 summary. So we can see that for January, we should have deducted 12,200 from the wages. And we've paid 10,000 over, so we still owe 22. We're a little bit into February, so we've got 4 5s there. We've got 2 3 there, which added to the 2 2 makes 4 5. So I can keep track as I go through the year on how much money I've deducted in total and how much money I've paid over in total and how much money I still owe in total. And I think that's a very useful facility. So we close that one. The other revenue returns are all there, the P35s, the P60s, and there's a year-end guide to doing the P60s. P60s, P35s I've run frequently. It's quite straightforward. Other reports then for management, you've got all the gross to net. Now we'll just look at the gross to net total by employee and we'll do 1 to 4, which is for January. Pretty sure it's for January. So what we got is, move this a little bit out of the way. You've got the gross pay and then the additions and the deductions moving all the way across to the net pay. The two of these figures, the net or the gross pay at 33 and the employer's PRSI of 3, that makes it cost me 36,000 or cost the employer 36,000 for that month. Some payroll packages total that for you, which is useful. This doesn't, but it's still available. You can dump that report out to Excel and play around with it. You can delete columns, you can add columns or whatever, and you can also dump it to a PDF file, which can be useful. So when you go back into those reports again, and we just look at another one, you tend to have a lot of features that we say just detail. I can choose the periods or the weeks, and I can run the reports. There's a lot of information there. There's a lot of reports there. You've got deduction reports, which can be useful, a summary by employee maybe for week 1 to 4. And that kind of shows me all the deductions. But let's say I'm focusing on the pension deductions. I could dump that to Excel, delete the columns I don't need, and send a tidied up report to the pension broker or whoever manages a pension for me. And that's quite a useful little report as well. One feature in Collsoft that can be very handy, but you have to use it under caution, is that I can go back into week 1 and I can edit the payroll for week 1. It'll let me do that. Now the danger with that is if when I calculated 2, 3, and 4, it was based on what had happened in week 1. If I change what happens in week 1, I need to go back and roll forward and bring everything forward up to date. If you don't do that, there's a danger you'll have a mistake. So some payroll people frown on being able to edit past payrolls. And in fact, going on out into the future, I don't think we'll be able to do it anyway. What the preferred thing for a lot of people is to take whatever corrections you have to make and put them into the most recent week, the latest week. The danger with that is you'll hammer somebody with PRSI if they get a big catch up in a week and they go up over the PRSI thresholds. So that's a price you're paying compared to the risk of getting your payroll wrong. In many payroll bureaus, they love this feature of being able to go back and correct, because a lot of employers don't give them the correct information when they're running the payroll, and they want them to go back and edit it, and it does allow it, but you really have to be careful about what you're doing. A couple of other features that people look for. Can your payroll talk to your account software? I know that Collsoft can, in theory, can talk to QuickBooks, but I haven't found anybody that actually uses that. I've never used it myself. So it's there, but it's the only payroll, it's the only accounting package it talks to, QuickBooks. The other thing some employers look for is, can it talk to a time recording system like a clocking machine? And it can't. But bear in mind, we're talking about a fairly simple payroll package at a fairly cheap cost for SMEs. So maybe it's not fair to be looking for something like that out of these very basic payroll packages. Speaking of cost, the cost for a typical company is €150 plus VAT per annum. Now, if you pay per week, that's what, about €3 per week plus VAT. If you pay per month, it's going to be like $12.50 or something like that per month plus VAT, which isn't dear for the peace of mind that it gives you. The standard company will allow you to have 3 companies. Most people keep one of those for testing, and you may not use 2, but you have the options of using 2. There's also a bureau version which has unlimited companies. That tends to be used by accounts office or payroll bureau or whatever. It wouldn't normally be used by client companies. So it's pretty good value, I think, the Collsoft payroll software. To go back then, reviewing the software, what were we looking for? Does it do the calculations correctly? Yes, I've never found a mistake with the software. I found a mistake with what people are putting in and how people are using it. But the actual payroll software is reliable. It's updated annually, so every time the budget changes, it will update the payroll rates. And as we saw when we were looking at the employees and the company, there's an awful lot of flexibility and customization in it. So I haven't come across a company yet that it couldn't handle their specific situation. Next thing I was looking for was an easy-to-read payroll. It's one of the better easy-to-read payslips. It's one of the better payslips that I have seen. Again, you have to set it up properly so that you put the right headings on it, but it's as good a payslip as I've seen. Does it provide the report you need for revenue? Yes, it provides the P30, P35, P60. Does it provide good reports for management? Yes, it gives you the cost reports, and it does it per department, and you can run them for weeks or months or whatever you want, by date or by week number. Is it easy to use? Yes, it's. I've seen it used in a lot of companies, and once people have a good understanding of payroll, it's pretty straightforward to use the actual software itself. And the support is good. Anytime I've had to contact them, I'd have a response. I'd usually email them and have a response within a couple of hours. And sometimes they'll ring me rather than send an email back. They'll ring me just and just resolve the question there and then, the issue there and then. What's the cost like? I think it's very good value. €150 for a payroll package. As I said, given the peace of mind that it leaves you with. So overall, what payroll packages are we talking about? You're comparing it to Thesaurus. Thesaurus is nearly as good as it, but there's one issue with Thesaurus. I don't like some of the reports. Now, having said that, Thesaurus is no longer available for sale to new customers. Thesaurus was brought over by a company called BrightPay, and BrightPay have a new product called BrightPay Payroll. So if you've never used Thesaurus before, they won't sell it to you now. If you've used it in the past, they will keep selling it to you, for now anyway. So BrightPay is a new product. I've been looking at that lately. I'm quite interested in it. It has one feature which is quite nice in that you can upload all the payslip information to the cloud, and then you can allow the employees effectively self-serve. If an employee came back to you looking for a payslip or wanted a payslip for a past week, they can log into the cloud, select the week they want, and download the payslip for that week, and that's a really useful feature. Another one I've used and seen used a lot is Sage Micropay. I'm not really a fan of Sage Micropay for a few reasons. It's quite clunky. It looks like it was written in the 80s or the 90s, and the user interface is quite clunky. They don't do weekly, monthly, the same way Collsoft does. If you look at our screen there, we can have weekly, or we can run monthly payroll, or we can run fortnightly payroll, or 4 weekly. When we run our reports, it will combine them all into one. With Sage, it effectively treats weekly or monthly or whatever as standalone companies. And at the end of the year, you have to merge them. It's a bit cumbersome, and I've seen mistakes happen because of that. So for that reason, I don't really like it. Sage is also quite expensive compared to Collsoft. BrightPay is around the same price as Collsoft. I'd say they're just matching each other on price. So I've been using and recommending Collsoft to most of my clients for the last 10 years at least. And it's probably still my number one. BrightPay looks not far off it. I don't think the reporting is quite as good as it or as neat as it, but I really do like this option of maybe making the employees have access, or giving the employees access to the payslips online. So I'm going to explore BrightPay a little more this year. But overall, I have no problem recommending Collsoft, and I have recommended it to my clients. So if you are looking for a payroll package, you can follow those steps, the selection criteria that I've had. You can download all of these free. There's usually something like a 30 or a 60-day trial, and you can play around with them. And then you can go ahead and buy the product, whichever product you select. So I hope you found this quick review useful. And if you have any comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section of the blog post. And thanks again from me, Jim Cahill of AccountsPLUS in Galway. 086 2323 525, jim@accountsplus.ie. And my website is www.accountsplus.ie. Thank you. Bye now.